Good evening to you. I wanted to make a brief YouTube and review work coming due, but also to give you some suggestions and so on for the class that may be helpful to you. As I mentioned too in the opening of this class, one of the most important elements that I can't stress enough to you is get into some sort of routine, especially if you're taking more than one online class, because it's just like for somebody who is a freelance graphic designer, nobody is saying, hey, you got to call more customers today. You got to send out an email. You got to follow up with this person. You just have to get into a schedule and, follow it and get into a good routine. Now, the biggest point that I have for you that I believe is important is have two calendars to keep track of what you do. One on the phone and one even paper to jot down a list of items that need to be completed, because that way you have a redundant backup. A lady that I work with, she had this happen to her. She was going to her meeting and she was closing her trunk. Her smartphone slipped out of her hand and she smashed it in her trunk. So she didn't have a backup, and now she does. She has it in two places. So, that's something that I would suggest. And then I also would tell you as well, if you have questions, or what I would really recommend is for you to preview the assignments like on Monday and, take a look at them. Earlier in the week, I am not as busy as I am as Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sometimes people will send me an email at midnight on Friday night and said, please let me know if you got this, or please respond to me with my questions. At that point, I can't do that. I just have too many documents and emails to read. Early in the week, no problem. I'll get back to you within 2 hours or so, or maybe a little bit more, but I will definitely respond. And the one point that I hear all the time from students, that take these online courses is, boy, I wish I was in an in-class course, I would learn more. I don't know if that's necessarily true, because when you're in an online class, you have to learn how to write email much better. You have to learn to ask specific questions. You have to learn to follow written instructions. And I can't even begin to tell you how helpful that is, because truly, when you go out and start working, whatever job you choose, some of the work, or much of the work, will not be in a set office. Some of it will be, in another location. So I have mentioned this before, but I had a student in this class, and she works for one of the larger medical centers in West Virginia. And so pretty much every week they go into these mountain communities, and they provide, pregnancy care and women's health care for, women in those communities. So, especially when a woman's pregnant, they have like an RN, they have a nurse practitioner, they have this, like I said, this student, she's a sonographer, and she also does other radiologic exams. And then they have someone who's a phlebotomist, and so on. The student that I had, though, in class, she is a sonographer, but she also has a certificate in lab testing of phlebotomy. And you know what? If you work at MedExpress, for example, and if you can do both, radiology and different lab tests, you get paid a few dollars more an hour. And trust me, that adds up over a year. While you are here, if you can get a minor in something or a certificate, it definitely pays. So like these days, I teach a criminal justice writing class, which I've taught for a while, but these days, students will get 2 degrees, one in criminal justice and one in homeland security. So, and I see more and more students getting credits in like foreign languages or American Sign Language. And, I see students taking more computer and speech classes and so on. But if you're a little bit more diverse, in my opinion, it definitely helps. I also wanted to mention to you a few services that this college offers that you may want to consider. Obviously, later in the semester, in this class, we're going to be using collegecentral.com WCCC. And so that's the Career Services website where you can upload documents in your portfolio and your resume and so on. So, I mean, this is only, kind of getting closer to the end of February, but we're not into the middle of the semester yet. And, if you ever wanted to make an appointment with Career Services, they could help you. Obviously, they could help you with your resume, post documents into the portfolio at College Central, help you with a LinkedIn type of profile. And then if you're not in the medical areas, you can do an internship. So that's between 120 and 180 hours. It's like a 3-credit class, but you typically go work for a company, gain experience, and some internships you are paid and some you are not paid. So like my son Paul is doing an internship through Excella, and he's a videographer and photographer, and he's gained wonderful experience. So, so that is definitely an option. I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about the discussion boards that we're doing. So with discussion board 1A, the first posting was due for the 22nd. So that was Wednesday night. And then you have to respond to another student by the 24th at midnight. And the one point to mention with this one, and then when we get to discussion board 2, I'm trying not to start off with a personal opinion or use I think, I feel, I believe, because those are personal opinions. What you want to do with these factual cases is kind of provide an overview of what's happening and review. And so, you can say M Global Boston is implementing a trial telecommuting policy, and you can review some of the key points. And then you can also, in this particular case, get into some of the ethical issues. But when you draw a conclusion, don't say, I think, I feel, I believe, my thoughts, say, therefore, thus, however, something like that. But it's not a direct opinion. It's more that you're drawing conclusions from facts. And that's a better way to do it because that's what's called inductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is to draw your conclusion from your personal opinions. And trust me, that is not as strong. So with discussion board 1, we are practicing sentence level writing. So for each of those clusters of sentences, you're only allowed, there may be a few sentences, but you're only allowed one sentence of 20 words or less. And some people say that's not possible, but it truly is. Some years ago, I was teaching a writing class, and I wrote this sentence on the board, and it was a pretty good example. Doctors who have been in practice for a very, very long time and have seen all types and kinds of patients can tell a person who is genuinely sick and has medical problems from someone who is faking it. So my one student wrote, experienced doctors easily recognize hypochondriacs. So I thought somebody was knocking on my door, sorry. But anyhow, so experienced doctors easily recognize hypochondriacs. So that was a much more trimmed down way of saying it. So anyhow, so you're just practicing those sentences. With the one sentence, and I don't have my book right in front of me, but make sure to mention the screen out particles 6 inches or larger in size. And there's another sentence that mentions acres and mention that some acres are developed and some are undeveloped. Developed acres means like there's a building that I saw by the ATC. It was industrial park, so they built a Respironics warehouse over there. Undeveloped, you can't put a shed on it. You can store trucks or airplanes or something like that, but if it's undeveloped, you can't do much with it. So you're practicing that with the first part of discussion board 1. Discussion board 1, the second part is like the active voice. And so the active voice shows who is doing what. So I'll give you a good example. Michael removed the hose from his pressure washer, but he twisted it the wrong way and it stripped the thread. So what I did, who was doing what? And I teach, like I said, this criminal justice writing class, and I had a police officer come in who was also a canine officer. And what happened is they stopped this man in the parking lot of Sheetz, I think down in North Huntington. And what happened is the guy, he was intoxicated, and he went to tackle the police officer. or no, he went to hit him like on the side of the face. And so the police officer said, as the suspect tried to strike me, I proceeded to go in and tackle him and throw him to the ground. So what the individual did and then what he did in response to that. And so that shows force, but it was reasonable force because otherwise the police officer would have got hit in the face and probably would have had to go to the hospital. So there is that. So I wanted to comment on that. And then what I wanted to tell you then is the customer service evaluation is going to be due for Friday, February 24th. And then finally, I just want to review what's due for next week. And next week's already the 3rd of March. And anyhow, you have to do a proposal for your consumer report. And let me talk about that a little bit. And there's one other item that you have to do. For the consumer report for this technical communication class, you need to look at 3 products that are the same and select 3 models of those products and similarly spec them out. So let me illustrate. It only has to be something that's $100 or more, but it can be as expensive as you like. So I had a female student in this class last year that she was looking at 3 designer purses, like handbags that had, I guess, like a clutch handbag. And the 3 that she were looking at, I think one was Fendi, one was Gucci, and the other one was Michael Kors. So, you know, they were all clutch handbags and they were all between $800 and $1,000. She actually went to Las Vegas and did some research out there. Apparently, they have the largest Gucci store in the world there. So she was able to see a huge array of handbags. But, you know, even if you're doing like a vehicle, the vehicle they have to be all the same. So let me illustrate for you. So I'm most familiar with Hondas. So if you looked at the Honda CRV, so it's a crossover utility vehicle. It's not an SUV, it's a CUV. And so the base model was the LX. So you can get an LX with an automatic transmission. The second one that you can consider is a Toyota RAV4 LE automatic transmission. So again, they're all in that same category, around $23,800. And then finally, Mazda has the Mazda 3 all-wheel drive with automatic transmission. Theirs is called the Grand Touring, and it's around the same 23,800. But they all have to be in the same category, and you have to pick out a brand, and then like with cars, you have to pick out a model of them because truly, you know, for the Ford F-150 4x4 pickup truck, I mean, you can go from around 28,000 to like 60-some thousand. They have one called the Platinum. So, you know, you have to spec them out and they have to be similar. And then, you know, when you mention the points of criteria, do not just list them, but you need to explain them. And so, like, for instance, I'll give you a good example. A lot of people say, well, all guns have a safety on them. Yes, they do. But if you buy a handgun, they're all going to be different. And, you know, like Smith and Wesson and, I don't know, some of the other brands have like it on the side, or they might have a little button on the trigger that you can push. When you buy a Glock, they really don't have much of a safety, and they're designed for people that are like police officers, you know, people that are people that are really, really familiar with guns. So you have to explain your criteria, and whatever you do, like if you're looking at, I don't know, something like a laptop, don't say you want something with a decent amount of memory or a good hard drive or whatever. What does that mean? So, you know, articulate what you're looking for. And then finally, with your sources, make sure to check out EBSCOhost through the WCCC website, YouTube, the manufacturer websites like Best Buy, also the store, bestbuy.com, you know, sources like that. So you can go to various stores and talk to people, which I really always advise. And so, but whatever you do, when you do this consumer report proposal next week, please spend time on it. Don't just hack it on and write it in about a minute or two, because that makes me mad, and then you're going to have to rewrite it, and then you're going to get mad at me. So what I want you to do is spend more time on the front end, and then you will have fewer problems at the back end, believe me. And then finally, the other last item that I need to mention to you for next Friday, March 3rd, I want you to go either into EBSCOhost, and you can go through the portal and then go to the library tab, and there's one in there. It doesn't say EBSCOhost, it says Master File Premier. Click on that one, and then you can search something for your major. So like I had somebody that I read his today, it was welding safety. So he was a welding student. Then I had another student, and then she did various uses of sonography. And I think the average person thinks sonograms are just for pregnant women, but truly they're not. You know, you can look at the heart, you can look at the kidney, the liver, spleen, various organs and so on. You can even make a determination on kidney stones and things like that. So when you find an article of 3 to 5 pages in your field, you can click on email, and then you can email it to hrickim@wccc.edu. So that's all I have to cover. I usually try to keep these to 10 minutes, but tonight it wasn't possible because there was too much to go through.